really appreciate you coming here. I hope everybody is doing okay, considering the circumstances here. I would love to talk about anything anybody would like to talk about. The credits will play behind me, and you can play the game of trying to pronounce the Polish crew. I've been having such exciting for me, selfishly, conversations with audiences, and if anybody has anything to ask or to start, please, raise your hand or whoever. Yeah, hi, you.
Hi. Thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I'm just really curious. It really feels like it's Benji's story, and I don't understand why he's nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
So I can only speak to who's the story. I guess I don't really think that way as a writer, except for the fact that, I think the movie is the way I view the movie is it's through David's eyes, trying to kind of figure out his cousin, who's such a mystery to him. And the way the movie's kind of designed is that you're never with Benji alone, you're always with David, except for the beginning and the end, which in my kind of more abstracted sensibility would say that it's almost in David's head of his cousin who can't exist anywhere outside of somewhere transient like an airport. And as David tries to understand his cousin, his kind of arc, so to speak, is that he realizes he's not going to be able to change this person, and he just understands that his cousin is suffering and will always be suffering. And so the last shot of the movie is trying to get inside Benji's head, and just we can't get close enough. In the same way David can't get close enough to his sweet cousin. And the title in the beginning, of course, kind of refers to Benji as this obnoxious kind of creature. And by the end, just the title refers to him as just this heartbroken, sad thing. And that was kind of my goal with the movie in general, is to just kind of have a character like this and make audiences heartbreak for him. And I don't know if it gets to 100% of audiences, but I'm hoping it gets to as high as possible, because that's certainly how I feel. Yeah, hi. Hello. Do you have a technical question about the awards campaign? Okay, then go ahead. I'll repeat her question too, especially if it's...
I'm an aspiring filmmaker, and you really inspire me. And I was just wondering, the iconic Chopin score that you have throughout the film, I was wondering if it was more of an afterthought after you wrote the project, or if you were thinking about it while conceiving it.
Oh, thank you so much. Such a nice question. She's asking about the Chopin score. So the entire score is Chopin. Chopin is a Polish composer. He left Poland, I forgot, halfway through his life. He had a very tragic, short life. His body is buried in France, where he ultimately made his home, and his heart went back to Poland. So he is considered in Poland, one of the handful of national heroes. And when I was writing the movie, I was just listening to his pieces. He has something like 150, for my purpose, usable pieces for a soundtrack. It was overwhelming. And so I was just listening to them, and I started just writing them in the script, because I wanted the reader to have a sense of the tone of the movie, because people are reading about these two guys who are sneaking onto roofs and smoking pot, and I wanted to indicate to the audience in some way that's not the tone of the movie. That's what the characters are doing to try to reconnect with each other. But that the tone of the movie is them trying to connect these two guys to history, and the music allowed me to do that in a really kind of beautiful, sweet way that was kind of not forceful. That was just implied that this movie is trying to take these kind of modern people and connect them to the past. And it was great, because on set I would take out my phone and I would play the songs, tell the actors we're going to be walking to this song, so you can feel it viscerally. So we don't just have to intellectualize this scene; we can actually feel something. And similarly with the camera department, I would give the songs to the dolly grip, who's the guy who pushes, as you know. You're in film, a lot of probably people here would be basics. Well, some people might not know what a dolly grip is, and that's fine. They should leave, but so he could pace the scene. So they're listening to this Chopin music. It was beautiful. And then my financiers were kind of happy because it's public domain. And then the very last last minute, they thought we might not appeal to young people, so they asked me to put in a Jason Mraz song. But then I told them, well, it was in the script, which you already bought, and it's free, so and so they let me keep it. Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, hi, in the white jacket, and I'll repeat, so don't, and then I'll go. Yes.
Test.
Hi, Cześć.
I'm actually Polish,
I know.
so this movie was very personal for me.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, what was your experience while you were filming it in Poland?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, my experience, she's Polish. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for not throwing a Polish vegetable at my head. Yeah, filming in Poland was an absolute dream come true. I mean, my family's from there. The house that we filmed the movie at in Krasnostav, that little town at the end, is my family's house that they lived in up until 1939. And if that gives you any indication of how warmly I was welcomed, it's true. No, really. Oh, no, I don't mean that I got kicked out. No, I mean that they let me film there. That they would not have kicked me out. They would have let me keep those films forever and ever there. No, everybody, it could not have been a more amazing crew. I mean, first of all, we're probably mostly filmmakers here. So one of the best film schools in the world is called the Łódź Film School, as you know, and it's in Poland, and people from all over, richer countries in Poland will go to Poland, spend 9 months learning Polish to go to this film school, and so it's producing the most amazing artisans, and so you have a crew of down the entire call sheet, amazing artisans, people who are cinephiles, that kind of thing. And then it was just everywhere we went. We couldn't have been welcomed more openly. I mean, especially at the concentration camp where they don't allow movies to shoot there. But we spent a long time trying to convince them and explain to them what the nature of this movie is and what we were trying to do and what I'm trying to do personally, which is I want to show a modern audience what this place is, and they want to show modern tourists what this place is. And anyway, we just know we had an amazing time. Those two guys at the end were actors telling me to move the stones. The rest of the country, all 39 other million people, were so wonderful to us. And those guys were only doing that because I wrote it. Yeah, thank you so much. And we're going all the way in the back. You, sir, yes, sir.
Really curious, as you were writing it, how much you had planned out ahead of time and how much it felt like you were discovering it as you wrote.
Oh, that's such a nice question. Yeah, I try to write from, forgive me if this sounds a little pretentious, but also why stop now? But I'm sure that half of you are screenwriters here, so maybe you can understand from what I'm speaking about. I try to write from a place of almost unconscious. I write in email folders and email drafts, not screenwriting, because I don't want to think of it as a movie. I want to think of it just as personal reflections, kind of. So I write in email drafts. I wrote a play in 2008. There was a character named David who I played, who goes to Poland. And then I wrote a play in 2015 called The Spoils about a character named Benji who kind of is torturing all of his friends. And then I wrote a short story about David and Benji but going to Mongolia. And then I wrote this script. And so I knew these characters so well. Not only did I know them as a writer, but as an actor, because I had played in my play, I played a character named Benji that I played for 2 years, in the West End in New York, and I played David for months. And so I knew these people so implicitly that by the time I was writing, it felt like I could plop them into any situation. So then it was really easy. Once I was basically going on this tour, I just knew exactly what they would do in any given situation. And I was writing the movie using Google Street View. This was during the pandemic, and even if it was during the pandemic, I could not convince my wife that I'm going to go to Poland for a research trip. She'd think it was bullshit. And so I was writing using Google Street View. So for example, they're at this first monument that the tour guide takes them to, and then I did Google Street View to get to the park, which would have been the next stop in some of these Holocaust brochures. And I saw that they passed a little fruit and vegetable stand. So that little scene came in where Kieran's buying water for everybody. He says gracias to them. So just using Google Street View allowed me to navigate exactly what the story would be, and then it just kind of flowed out. But I've been living with it for so long. I took this same trip, but just me and my wife, in 2008. So that's just how I've been writing for a long time. And I think it's because I haven't written for hire yet. Maybe I will, but I haven't so most of the time I'm writing things that I don't necessarily think will be made, and so I'm just kind of letting things pour out. And if it comes out organically, then I try to pursue it. Thank you so much for such a nice question. Hi, on the end there. Yes, you.
Yeah, you kind of had my question, but I thought it was
Okay. You didn't have to say that.
Yeah. Balancing drawing writing the script and then shooting the film, how did you ensure to walk that fine line, make sure it didn't get too comedic at the expense of the drama and the emotion, but also don't get too serious and then it's not really funny?
Right. Yeah, no, thanks. Oh, I'm glad you asked that. That's really great. Yeah, it's exactly what, I mean, yeah, the tonal balance is hard, but I didn't actually ever worry about it because, like, he's asking about comedy and drama, and obviously this has both, and I just never really thought about it because I never felt like the film was being funny. It always just felt like, oh, Kieran's character is funny, but it's also incredibly heartbreaking. Like, he has funny lines like, money is like heroin for born people. And it's like, to me, that's like a funny thing that somebody could say, but it comes from, because he so resents, mainstream life. And so he has to put down rich people because he thinks rich people are corrupt, because he has this kind of bastardized worldview that makes him a victim. And sometimes he's right, and sometimes it's overblown and juvenile. But so it seems like, to me, the humor always came from either these two guys kind of trying to reconnect and not being able, but it never seemed, the closest movie gets to the movie being funny is that scene, it's the big kind of comic set piece, but it's when, he's calling everybody up to take the picture. That's the only time, and the only real shot, when we do this kind of funny shot and everybody's frozen in place, is probably the only time the movie's funny, but I felt okay, it's kind of minute 23, and I felt like I could do it there. And it could get everybody on Benji's side, so it's character driven, he's pulling everybody away from me. But it's the only time that the movie, in my opinion, edges towards the movie saying it's funny. Otherwise, the funny stuff, in a way, comes out of, really not such nice things. When Kieran's yelling in the cemetery. To me, it's hysterical, but, it's so uncomfortable because the guy is being, kind of, assaulted by this guy, and he's such a well-meaning, tour guide. And Kieran's just, he's just so cruel. But, but never felt like that. And then I'll just say one more thing about it, which is that, when somebody brought up Kieran Culkin to me, the first question I had in my mind was, wait, does he do comedy or drama? And it's that question was the answer. It was oh, right, yes. And we did go through names of, more comedic names when we were casting, just because, that's what, the initial, movie company wanted. And it would have been funny, but but definitely not as good. There's something about Kieran that when he's joking, you can still see in his eyes, he wants to, die, or he wants to kill, so it's so heartbreaking in his eyes. It's you can't teach that or ask somebody to do that. It's just something he naturally has that he's so wonderful at. I mean, something that he naturally has as an actor. He's very much happy to be alive, but he's able to, we're all actors. I'm sure probably half of us are actors here. And you have that thing in you or you don't. I don't know. He's able to turn that thing on himself in such a beautiful way. Thank you so much. Yeah, hi, in the middle there. Hi.
Quick question, was any of it improvised?
You asked if any was improvised. I hate improvisation. I don't even understand the appeal of let's spend millions of dollars on a set and then have the actors, just riff. To me, it's I don't understand why that became the thing to do, but my background as a writer is in theater, and you never improvise in theater because most playwrights are dead, so you just don't change it. So there's a line that's improvised in the movie that is just the funniest thing. But basically, Will Sharp, the tour guide, at the end of that scene with Kieran, he just says, "Thanks, David." And I think he did that just to tease me. He said, "Thanks, David." Well, he was just supposed to. Actually, the scene was supposed to end with the two of them hugging, and it obscures me. I'm standing in the way, and they hug over me, and you just lose David. And then, so it's kind of a bittersweet ending, and then he just turned and said that. We had one take, so it was about to rain, and he said that. And Will Sharp, who played that part, is a genius. He's a writer-director. I would really encourage people to look him up. He's a brilliant writer, director, actor. That was an exception. And yeah, I called it an improv, but I think it was kind of to tease me. I don't even know what you'd call that, but he's a genius. So stuff like that, you keep it. Yeah, thank you so much. I have a pink hat. Yes. I'll repeat the question.
Okay, thanks. Well, as a fellow Jew, I get very nervous about Holocaust films because I had to sit through a lot of Hebrew school watching them.
Yeah.
And I just want to first start by saying I really love this.
Oh, thanks.
I love the tone of it. I love the history. And I kind of want to piggyback on the question from over here about Kieran because his performance is impeccable. I can't imagine someone better doing this role, but I do wonder, is it just, maybe it's because it was him, but why didn't you cast a Jewish person in the role?
I couldn't find any Jews in the arts. listen, that was obviously on our minds. Less on my mind, frankly, than on the minds of my producers who are non-Jews. Less on my mind because I played mostly non-Jews in movies. So, but also this is the way I thought about it, and I think you'll appreciate it. There were people who were Jewish, and they would not have been as good. And it's my story. It's about my family. We filmed at my family's house. It's about my grandmother, or she's my aunt, but we call her Grandma Doris. She's my Aunt Doris. And he's playing people I know. And there's no one who could have captured it and captured what I'm trying to portray as good as him. And so I walked away not thinking, well, that was a compromise. We got a great actor, but it compromised this pure thing. Instead, I walked away thinking, what an unbelievable gift this kid gave to my family. That he did this story, that he is now like being asked about Israel during PR. Like that this guy who has nothing to do with any of this stuff is now like an ambassador for like the Holocaust. And I just think like what an unbelievable gift. And I hope that I'm also giving a gift to people when I'm playing a non-Jew and I'm working my hardest to, figure out how to eat mayonnaise on cue. And so that's kind of how I think about it. And I am forever indebted to him, and my family's forever indebted to Kieran. I mean, my dad, it's his family. His family was killed. My dad's sitting there crying. He's heartbroken by this actor. I mean, that's what acting is. I did give it a second thought after I had that revelation. I hope I didn't offend anybody, but that's genuinely how I feel about the arts, and specifically, I got a heart signal, which tells me I can stop rambling. Okay. Thank you so much. Yes, hi, you want to edge there? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that he was perfect for the role, and
Thanks.
that's why they call it acting.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I saw a lot of myself in that character, which was kind of embarrassing, so great job. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much. You were the second person, and the other person was in London 2 days ago who said, I'm Benji. And then she went on to prove it. Resulted in me getting a script. But basically, no, that's amazing. I'm so surprised. To me, it's like the most lovable creature on earth, but I recognize that it's people, you're in a minority when you identify with him. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. But yeah, hi, right here.
Hey, so this is the third time I've seen this, and it's a real love letter to Poland in a lot of ways. I have a technical question about the train sequences.
Oh, wow.
If you were to try to film train sequences in the U.S., you would have to go through hell because of since 9/11.
Yep.
How were you able to get the train sequences in Poland? Did you have to steal anything, or did they let you shoot everything free?
Yes, you are a very astute audience member. Yeah, I was asking about the train sequences. It was the most difficult part of this movie times a million. Basically, so the movie's like a $3.5 million movie in Poland. Our entire visual effects budget went to the green screen on the trains, but we couldn't even shoot on a moving train. The way we had to do it was, there's all these scenes on the train. There's the first scene where we're eating in first class and Benji leaves. And I go find him, I sit next to him, and then we sneak back on another train, and then we're passing through 6 cars. All of that was done on one train car that was in it was in like a mechanic. It was in like a train depot where they fix trains. So we were told that we had one shoot day, whatever. We were told on that shoot day, we may or may not get a train there. And if it was, they didn't know which train it was going to be. So we didn't know, we didn't even know which train it was going to be. We got lucky that a train came in, it was broken, we could shoot on it. They put green screen outside of it, and it was such a fucking pain in the ass. And because we're trying to do these shots, we're going through this car and then this car, and we had to cut each time. Whatever, I can't complain, it was fine. But and it was just so exhausting. And then, it was so difficult to give it a kind of a pace. And then, and again, $3.5 million movie is like a small movie for this kind of scope of movie, and tons of visual effects money went to just luckily the guys at the Artery. If you don't know about the Artery, you're looking for a visual effects house, they're the best, and they gave us a discount because they're also doing Marvel or something, so this was like a nice project for them. And this was just rotoscoping our heads out of the train, for months. Thank you so much for the astute question. Okay, I have 5 minutes. So, yes, hi, all the way in the back, I see you with your hand. Hi.
I'm an immigrant, and I moved to the U.S. when I was very young.
Yeah.
And so I have imbued both love for homeland and also trauma from homeland.
and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, the concentration camp, they, I mean, we filmed there. The experience was strange. It was, they don't want movies to film there, because most movies want to shoot at concentration camps. First of all, this is not Auschwitz, it's called Majdanek. It's the one that is based on the trip I took, so I wanted to shoot there. But most films want to turn that into Auschwitz, 1941, and have, Nazis, extras, and Nazis you're running, in uniforms running through. And so it was really hard to get them to understand that our movie was not that. But we also had the advantage of having the best Polish producers. The company's called Extreme Emotions. It's Eva Pachinska. She did Ida, Cold War, Zone of Interest, and so she's great. And so, I mean, she's the best. They used to call her the Scott Rudin of movies until they had to change the analogy. Poland, But anyway, so that was helpful. And then shooting there was super weird, because there's all these practical considerations, and I could say, because I'm speaking to a film audience, you have to plug in, the gaffer has to plug in, for electricity, and so our wires were running through gas chamber, it's so weird, and I almost feel embarrassed saying that because it feels exploitative somehow. We just have to keep reminding myself, this is for a good thing, it's telling the story is valid, but it did feel at some point just if you take any actors and put them in front of barracks, the movie turns to melodrama. So I was just pulling out music, pulling out any fancy shots, telling the actors you can emote, but don't make it about you. Don't make it about your characters. Let's have this be for the audience to see what we see. And then we're on the bus later, that's where people are kind of feeling something. But it was just a strange kind of thing to balance. Thanks for asking that. We could do, I guess, one more, right? Okay, yes, one more. Your hand went up so enthusiastically.
Hey there. First off, great movie.
Nice.
I think all of us would probably say the same thing.
I'm sure there's some.
I've only really gone to movies once I moved into Los Angeles last year. So for the longest time, I knew you as an actor.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see you finally doing it as a director movie.
Thanks.
So the first question I want to have is, what were the initial difficulties you faced directing movies? And also, since you're starting this as well, was it comparatively more difficult than when you used to be an actor?
Thanks for asking that, and welcome, Kelly. It was, I had the great advantage of being an actor, because as an actor on set, you know what a lot of jobs are doing that as a director you wouldn't know. So an actor's job, as many of us know here, the first hour of your day is with the hair and makeup team and the production assistants at the base camp. And then you're going to the set and you're kind of waiting off set until the director is ready for you to come on. So you're usually sitting with the grips and electrics, so you know what they do. And then you're kind of costume fitting, so you know what the costume department's doing. And so as a director coming on set, I knew what a lot of jobs were that a lot of other directors didn't, and it allowed me to feel a kind of sense of gratitude and a gratefulness to what they're doing, because I understood the difficulty of what they're doing, because I've been on the other side of it. So that was kind of a great advantage. Disadvantages are all the things you might imagine, I can't see the shot, because I'm in the shot. So we would rehearse and I would hold the little monitor and I would see where my body was in frame, and then we would do the scene and I could either go and watch it back, which would take another 5 minutes if I watched it with the headphones and the TV, or I could just do another take. And it's you couldn't do both because we were moving so quickly. So all the time I would just say, I'd have to rely on my cinematographer and my producers, one of whom is the brilliant Emma Stone, so she's, obviously amazing, so she'd give me acting notes sometimes, because she was watching it off camera, so that was really helpful. But a lot of times I just didn't know what it looked like until you get the footage 3 days later. So that was a, disadvantage. All in all, for my mental health, it was an advantage to do everything because I didn't have a second to, I just finished this movie, 1983. It's a big Hollywood movie, and I spent the first 5 hours in the trailer going over my one word for the day, and it's the word is come on, and you spend 5 hours in the trailer alone, just thinking, come on, come on, come on. Shit, maybe you should be British. Come on. And with this, I just didn't have a second to do all that nonsense. The nonsense that all of us actors do because we are in our heads and we think we should be doing something else instead of just being natural. And so I didn't have any time to do that stuff. So that was to my mental health advantage. Thank you so much. And hi. Okay, so that's it. I have to leave.